Okay, so Netflix might be buying Warner Brothers. What? Yeah, so new reporting, but also, of course, going to give a lot of context here, and I want to explain what I think is going on, because as we've been talking about with this exact story, I actually said this, I believe, on Monday. A lot of the reports that are coming out of this are not necessarily accurate. They all serve a purpose, though. This thing is high stakes, man. This is high fucking stakes. About as high stakes as it gets. And therefore, a lot of the narrative and the sort of sense-making apparatus that is going to tell you what's going on is going to be, let's say, lensed, angled, couched. A lot of people pushing a lot of agendas right now. So we're going to have to take a step back and figure out what's actually going on. But the newest report, which really has shocked many people, is that Netflix is reportedly actively exploring a bid to buy Warner Bros. Assets. Very important word. We're going to come back to that. They've hired the bank that advised Skydance on purchasing Paramount. Feels like a power move. Netflix also has been granted access to Warner Bros. Data room and financial details. This is out of Reuters, guys. This is a big deal. This is big time actual financial what the fuck, holy shit kind of reporting. So, Netflix actively exploring to buy Warner Bros. Assets. Now, this is important because there were reporting, I believe it was either Bloomberg, it was another financial mag within the last couple of weeks that said that Netflix isn't interested in all of Warner Bros. Okay? They are interested in parts of Warner Bros. You'd probably think the IP. Now, from Netflix's perspective, IP is something they desperately need. Netflix is spending a lot of money on original IP, and they're trying to crack that. They also have a lot of licenses. You know, they hold the One Piece license, etc. A lot of stuff. I think the future, believe it or not, is still connected to IP, and I think Netflix knows that. And I think Netflix would love a lot of the IP that Warner Brothers has. You know, DC stuff for sure, but you know, all sorts of stuff that Warner Brothers has. House of the Dragon. All of that stuff, man. Like, Netflix is like, yo, that's a juicy little library of content that you have there, Warner Brothers. How much you want for it? Kind of a situation, okay? They've hired the bank that advised Skydance on purchasing Paramount. That's crazy. Actual money is being spent. This is getting serious. This is actually getting serious. So they have a bank. They have access to the data. That's the last part of this report here. They've gained access to Warner Brothers data and financial details. So basically getting a look under the skirt or under the hood. Okay? Really looks like actual prep going on for a potential sale or acquisition. Now, the last reporting I saw from Warner Brothers' perspective was Zaslav addressed the board, and I believe he addressed something like 34,000 pertinent employees that were, you know, in some way, he wanted to address that big group of people about what was going on with the company. And he basically said that the offer's just not there. They would need a much bigger offer to justify, and I believe his words are actually really interesting. What he said was either a partial or complete sale of Warner Brothers. So, again, a partial sale is still on the table. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. If, on the one hand, you might say the IP is what's valuable. And of course it's valuable. That's like, duh. But if I were Zaslav, it would just kind of depend. Okay, so I could see a scenario in which some of these other companies are actually not willing to give you what you think the full company is worth. And Netflix, in some ways, is actually willing to overpay for the IP. You still have distribution channels, maybe legacy, this, that, second, and the third, all kinds of other assets. I could see a scenario in which Zaslav technically justifies this sale and of the IP based on Netflix's like ability to maybe overpay for it, right? That's the only way I could actually see this going down, and frankly, I don't actually think that will go down. Okay, so what is this then? Like, what's actually going on? Well, I believe what this is kind of what we were kind of saying earlier on in the week, maybe even at the end of last week. I think this is just the bidding war thing. You know, the idea of Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers or its IP should be like a really shocking thing to a lot of Hollywood people. And I think it's meant to get that price up. And so I think this reporting here, and honestly, even just the meetings themselves, like Zaslav would be wise to court Netflix, basically, even if it was only to jack the price up because of a bidding war. So this could actually just be like bidding war, like let's kind of get these other people to take this a little bit more seriously, put some actual money behind this thing and get the thing sold kind of a situation, right? So like if I had to tell you straight up what I actually thought was going on, I'm leaning more in that direction. That this and some other stuff that's going on with like Comcast potentially looking at it as well, I think this is actually just the sort of downwind of moves that Zaslav made to try to get the bidding war going on. And there were a lot of reporting that suggested that that's something he desperately wanted to do. And in fact, you could make the argument that it's actually his fiduciary responsibility to create a bidding war for Warner Brothers. If they are for sale, you could make the argument that it's his fiduciary duty to do that, right? And so therefore, to open up the data to Netflix, to pursue a potential actual sale, for Netflix as a company to actually put things in motion, to get close to a sale, all of that is appropriate. I tend to believe it's just to move the needle and not actually to court Netflix as a potential buyer. But here's the thing that I think a lot of people need to realize, and this is something I've tried to say from the start, is that when you get into these sort of situations, what you think will happen, what everybody thinks is going to happen, it doesn't necessarily change that much. However, the chances of a black swan thing happening, the chances of something like out of nowhere happening, go way up. Okay, so I really want you to hear me on that. Because again, basically, you could be looking at a scenario where like Netflix offers something re-fucking ridiculous, like $50 billion, and it's not even the full assets. Maybe it's not even a permanent deal. Like Netflix could make an offer because Netflix is a very, not only are they like a huge market cap company, but they cash flow in ways that other companies do not. Netflix has the ability to have a lot of debt. Netflix can, because they cash flow on a monthly basis. I mean, their financials are very strong, especially compared to a lot of other companies, a lot of other tech companies, but also just in general entertainment companies. There's a reason that Netflix has been the king. Its model is absolutely incredible, right? So, what if Netflix makes an absolutely absurd offer that Warner Brothers literally would? Because here's the thing, you could actually corner Zaslav. If you make the offer that's the best offer, they have to take it. Do you remember what happened to Elon Musk and Twitter? It's a similar kind of situation. Now, there were a lot of other variables there, and Musk was like getting his foot in his mouth a lot more. But remember, they at first didn't want Musk to buy it. Then they legally forced him to buy it. Okay, they legally forced him to buy it. Do you know why? Because it was the best offer. And they had a fiduciary responsibility to the people that held stock in the company, the people that publicly traded. They had a responsibility to do it. Okay? So, like, if Netflix makes a certain offer, I think, technically speaking, Warner Brothers has to accept it. Now, the only way around that would be the board making an argument, or maybe the government stepping in. And we've heard things like maybe the Ellisons have a special, on-ramp to this deal via the Trump administration. Maybe Netflix does not. That's arguable. Maybe the board and a lot of old school Hollywood people don't really want to cozy up to Netflix, even if the money's right. And you could make that argument. That's, by the way, probably something that's been shutting down a lot of offers from the Saudis, because I've been hearing rumors that there have been big money offers from Saudi money funds. And it's probably a similar situation where the board doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. There are maybe ethical, concerns, government concerns, all sorts of things go into this. But I do think there's a potential where, like, if Netflix it's like The Godfather. If Netflix makes the right offer, I think it actually goes away. I think it actually goes to Netflix. And what a crazy ass scenario that would be. I think a lot of people in Hollywood are panicking over the possibility. I think a lot of people don't like Netflix, and that's fair. Chad, I'd like to know where you guys are at with this. Like, are you like, Netflix? No, like, whatever. Let me know. Really interested in what you guys think about that. It will probably not surprise you to know I would be a fan of this. I really like Netflix as a company. By the way, one of the things I like about Netflix gets hit by a lot of like left, progressive, wokey kind of people, and then it also gets hit by a lot of like hardcore right people. Netflix, I think, and whenever I see that, I actually think that's a good reputation. I'm not joking at all, because what that indicates to me is like a company that's not actually like technically taking sides, but experimenting enough to have stepped in it enough to have actually butthurt some people on both sides, which I actually think is good, because you have to break a few eggs in this market to make the omelet, right? I actually like it. Netflix is a tech company, and they're very unique as a tech company. Their evolution over the past 10 years and how they've sort of become a hybrid entertainment / tech company is absolutely fascinating. And I think Netflix is, like, I like their corporate culture. I like the decision making over there, partially because they take risks. I know that they've done silly things. They've tried things that didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. I'm being 100% honest. I actually really like the company. I like the stock. And I like the company. So I'm actually a big, big fan. And I also think that this is a moment where there might be a true need for something alternative. Hollywood itself, the entertainment industry right now, I think is very stagnant. I think it's behind the times. I think it's out of touch. And I do think an actual alternative to a lot of what is happening right now would be very valuable for the industry. And I think Netflix could do it. And I think Netflix armed with WBIP, like with the DC IP, Netflix with that IP, moving into what I think sort of the taste of the audience is kind of turning into, is we're going to talk more about, the Call of Duty movie, Sheridan, this crazy stuff that's going on. But like, I think the obvious, and I don't even think this is like a hot take, this is a very mild take. The sensibility of the audience is going in a more conservative direction. It might be going in a more conservative direction from like very, very far left, very progressive, just into a moderate place, or your mileage may vary on how you view it, but I think it's safe to say that like when a homie's getting like $1 billion development deal and then turning around and signing a writing deal for the Call of Duty movie from the company he just left, like things are heading in a very interesting direction. They're clearly putting value in Sheridan's ability to connect with what they see as a huge part of the audience. That's important. Now, what I think is kind of cool about that is Disney needs pushed around. And right now, I don't think Warner Brothers is the company to push Disney around. Just don't think so. Warner Brothers is acting too much like Disney, actually. Warner Brothers went out and got a Marvel guy. Warner Brothers is actually trying to create basically copy pasta MCU. So I believe that Disney needs pushed around, and I think the entire Hollywood thing needs pushed around. And so I think you need a big player, a new, like, big fish in that pond. And then if that fish succeeds, everyone else will just follow suit. Everyone else will just follow suit. The competition is good. It would force, like, basically I'm saying, like, the only thing that might actually force Disney to kind of, like abandoning a lot of the bullshit would be just a clear winner. Somebody else that took over that did it. That was like, hey, this is what we're doing now. This is what people want to do. Oh my God, that's working across the street. Holy shit, let's go. And I think Netflix is the company to do that. Again, though, your mileage is going to vary on how you feel about that. There's probably a lot of people that are like, yeah, that's exactly why I hate it. And I'm really worried about that exact thing. And that's fair. You could be right. We could be 3 years from now and be like, oh shit, conservative Hollywood sucks even worse. Like, this was a bad idea. But regardless, that's what's happening. And people are getting paid big money now because they think the future will be fruitful in that direction, right? So, yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. What does this mean for Gunn? I have no idea, man. I have no fucking idea. The only thing I know for sure is that, like, bro, there's a reason Gunn answered that way to Boba Talks. By the way, saw an incredible video put out by Paul from Heavy Spoilers. Recommend checking the video out about why he's worried for the DCU. Paul brings up a lot of things that I've been bringing up as well, but he says it in a really nice way with a really digestible, beautiful British accent. So go check that video out. If you can't stand me, if you can't accept Papa Josh trying to tell you, go listen to Paul. He sees what's going on. The DCU is in some serious trouble. So I don't know what it means. I think, though, we're in flux. I think we are in chaos. I think almost anything could happen from here. I think almost anything could happen from here. So anyways, chat, what do you guys think? What do you make of this thing with Netflix? Are you super mad? Are you like whatever about it? Tell me your thoughts. Not only is Netflix making original IP, but they are on top and still growing. It'd be the best interest just to let them have DC. Interesting take. Galen J, what up, brother? Says, morning nerds in New York for the weekend, catching the stream in my Uber. Nerd Adventure for Life. Awesome, man. Appreciate you, bro. Much love. Hope New York treats you good. Oh, yeah, March 10th. I did see that, and that is cool. We're very excited over here about that. Why even is happening? Because I think that a lot of things are changing. I think it's an inflection point in industry, technology. This company was probably going to be sold regardless. I mean, we were talking about Comcast buying this thing like 3 years ago. When Gunn first got hired, we were like, dude, Comcast is going to buy this thing. That's what the reporting was. Zaslav basically was like, yes, I am going to set this up for a sale. Like, that's what it was. We need Cavill to bring in Warhammer. Yeah, buddy. And trust me, he will. And I know you guys are like, but I see what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. I'm aware. Apple buying Disney was a thing as well. Yes, it was a thing. Yeah. I actually kind of wish that would have happened, to be honest with you. I actually kind of wish that would happen. Is Games Workshop a Russian company? No, they're a British company. I don't know about conservative media. As someone raised on god-awful Christian movies, I can say, at best, it'll be more centrist, at least I hope. Yeah, you know, that's kind of an interesting... It's interesting that you bring that up, because I think, frankly, this is one of the problems that conservatives have had when it comes to, like, culture. Liberals are better creatives. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like leftist, and basically like 9 out of 10 times or 8 out of 10 times, a really gifted artist is probably going to be left-leaning. Now, there have been incredible right-leaning artists as well, but frankly, I do think that's just an issue that that side has had. And I think that's also a part of why, like, some of the messaging just doesn't get through. And whatnot. But if you're actually paying attention to what's going on in culture, like really looking at like what Angel Studios is doing, because Angel Studios is not just making like, you know, kind of what you're describing, like god-awful Christian movies from back in the day. They're actually trying to like just create entertainment. Like just create entertainment and have the message float under the boats. Like the subtext of the conservative message should be there, right? You're actually seeing that. And I think the truth is this. What I'm referring to is, I think there's a thirst in the audience. Now, I don't know if Hollywood is equipped to actually serve this thirst, right? But I know that that thirst exists, and I think you can see evidence of it in all sorts of different data points, right? But it does have to actually be good art. It can't be just shit like... And I think that's a major problem with a lot of conservative art. It just sucks ass, dude. Like, it just sucks ass. A lot of it. So what does that look like moving forward? I really don't know. I mean, that's why Sheridan is such a valuable asset. They paid this guy $1 billion because he can do this. He can create really compelling art that speaks to that thirst. Don't you see? That's what makes him valuable in the market. If it did, I mean, why did he get paid $1 billion? Why do you think he got paid $1 billion? Right? But yeah, it's a fair question. I agree. I think there's a slight correlation between left-brain people and more conservative, vice versa. Outliers exist, obviously. Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big believer in like what they call personality type psychology. you know, like, have you ever taken like Myers-Briggs or the Big Five? There's like a hexa something or other. It's basically all a version of, hey, I'm built in a certain way that I have certain personality traits that just emerge out of my psyche, and so I'm more likely to like do this thing or perceive this information this way. And I think personality type is like, it's a huge part of what makes you you, right? And there's a correlation, not exactly causal, and it's not exactly like one-to-one, but there is a correlation between certain personality types and political ideologies and creative outputs, this, that, second, and the third, right? Yeah. People love the One Piece live show. It didn't appeal to me, but it's popular. I love that show. I'm really looking forward to that next one, yeah. Have you heard of the new Doomsday trailer leaks? Yes, my brother. That's next up on the top. We're almost done with this one. We're going to get into the Doomsday stuff. Holy, a lot of interest in this Doomsday thing. I mean, I'm interested. Don't worry. We're going to have fun. I'm going to do my thing. I'm an INFP personality, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is... I think all of that stuff is in a similar vein. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but it is all kind of boiling down to a similar concept. Yeah. My name is Doom. Okay, let's wrap this up. Any last minute thoughts here on the Netflix, Warner Brothers, industry, this, that, second and third before we get out of here? Guys, what else? Anything else? Anything else? All right, I think we'll call it there.